Let's go live now down to College Green. Gareth Davis MP, Shadow Financial Secretary to the Treasury is there. Gareth, very good morning to you.
Good morning. What
a shambles we wake up to this morning. I mean, I watched it last night with some incredulity, as I'm sure you did. You were probably there. How on earth does a government come up with a reform, welfare reform bill, which sets out to reform welfare, ends up not reforming it at all, but ends up then handing us a bill for even more money?
Well, because despite having a supermajority, the Prime Minister's completely lost control of his party. That's purely and simply what happened. We, I think, agree with the Prime Minister's warm words towards reducing the welfare budget, but the reality is that he is completely held hostage by his own MPs. And that's why we saw the spectacle last night, which was a series of U-turns as the night went on, unbelievably. And as a result, as you were saying earlier, this actually, ironically, could end up costing the government more money, not saving money. Even at $5 billion, that was a drop in the ocean. I mean, just to give you an idea, since the pandemic, health and disability benefits have ballooned to the extent that the OBR project that we're going to be spending about $100 billion by 2030 on those benefits. That's more than we spend on defence. It means that £1 in every £4 collected through income tax is going specifically on health and disability benefits. That's clearly unsustainable. We as a party in the Conservative Party are united in the need to tackle that, Labour are not.
No, indeed. And what about the performance this morning of Pat McFadden? You know, he's doing the rounds trying to kind of, you know, smooth the feathers and settle everybody down and say that, you know, we're going to go ahead and do whatever it is that we're going to do. But he doesn't yet have an answer as to where the money will come from. He starts talking about moving parts and how, you know, it's not for him to say. Well, surely it is for him to say.
Exactly right. I mean, there's serious consequences as a result of them not moving forward with welfare reforms. You remember that the bill last night was supposed to bring about £5 billion of costed savings. That money needs to be found now by Rachel Reeves, but this is added to the bill because they also U-turned, if you remember, on winter fuel payments, another disaster. That's £1.5 billion extra she's also got to find. And then later down the track, I'm telling you now, the next big issue for the Prime Minister is on the two-child benefit cap. And if he U-turns on that policy, that's a £3.5 billion spending commitment. And so come the autumn budget, what this means, Mike, is essentially, despite promising she wouldn't, she said she's not going to come back for more borrowing or more taxation, she's going to have to raise taxes. And that is going to hurt families and businesses in an already very difficult circumstance after she raised national insurance contributions. When, you know, again, she said she wouldn't do that either. So I'm afraid to say, I don't want to be too gloomy, but this is a really bad situation, Mike.
It is terrible.
Up and down the country.
It is terrible. And I mean, more and more people are telling me that they're leaving the country, that they know people that are leaving the country. And these are all people who contribute to the tax base of this country as well, by the way. You know, these are not millionaires we're talking about. These are ordinary working people, you know, who may have been, you know, close to retirement age, or they've got kids who have decided that, you know, they've left university, but there's nothing for them here. They're just going to leave and go and work somewhere else. You know, it's a very worrying trend, because what we're going to end up with is more people on benefits and fewer people actually paying taxes to cover it.
Absolutely, and you're totally right. Every conversation I have at the moment with business leaders is about the fact that they know hundreds of people who are leaving the country to go to Milan, go to Dubai, go to the United States, go elsewhere, because they feel that the levels of tax in this country now are completely unsustainable and unaffordable. And what that means is that the people who actually help pay for our public services are leaving the country at a time when we're seeing record arrivals on dinghies. You know, I mean, I don't need to tell you, you've reported at length on this. We're now seeing 20,000 people come across on dinghies, and 95% of them are being housed in costly hotels. And so we've got this combination of the people who pay for public services are leaving, and the ones who are draining our public services are coming at a pace that we've never seen before.
It is absolutely extraordinary, isn't it? And all of the people coming in will eventually be either working illegally or on benefits of one kind or another, whether it's because the money that's being used to keep them in hotels is coming from the taxpayer, or whether the money put them in houses is coming from the taxpayer. And the Mail says it this morning. Basically, all of these people coming in, we don't know who they are, we don't know where they're from, but they'll all have to be fed, housed and given free healthcare, and most of them will never leave.
But can you blame them? There's no deterrent. There's absolutely no deterrent. They said that they would smash the gangs. Well, I actually think the gangs are having a smashing time. You know, it's just unbelievable. There's no deterrent whatsoever. They scrapped the Rwanda scheme, which didn't even get a chance to get started because Labour opposed it at every step of the way. They scrapped it just as it was ready to go. And now there's no alternative in place. They need to urgently act to tackle this problem. Enough with the words. Get on with it and stop the boats.
Yeah, exactly right. But they don't seem to have any clue as to how to do that, though. There's pictures on the front page of The Sun today. The French authorities got a new buggy they're riding up and down the beach on, but they're not actually stopping anybody getting into the water. They're not actually stopping anybody getting into the dinghies, and they're certainly not stopping them from getting across the channel. We saw a picture the other day, did we not, Gareth, of a guy sitting at the front of a dinghy, sort of shooting a selfie of himself and filming himself as they were travelling across, you know, what's meant to be a very treacherous crossing. But you can only imagine how many more are going to come over the course of the next couple of months.
Absolutely, absolutely. And by the way, those buggies and other things that the French have, they're paid for by the British taxpayer. Yeah. That is Labour's answer. It's just to keep giving millions of pounds to the French. What you need is a fundamental policy of deterrence. You've got to say to them that if you come over here illegally, you will be sent elsewhere. If you don't do that, they're going to keep coming over, and that's why we're seeing above 40% increase year on year since Labour came to power of people coming across on the boats. And they're completely deluded. I don't know if you saw Darren Jones, the Chief Secretary of the Treasury, on Question Time. He suggested that it was all women and children coming across.
Yeah.
Well, we know that's not the case. Home Office have been clear that that's not the case. 70% are, you know, young men. So they just are all over the place, whether it's on the economy, whether it's on small boats. Happy 1 year anniversary of Labour government.
Yeah, well, I mean, a year of chaos is what we're calling it. We've got a piece, a little documentary going out at 9 o'clock on Friday night. Another one that I spotted this morning, I don't know if you've seen this in the Times today, NHS patients are facing more delays from the setting of what's being called minimum waiting times by NHS health chiefs. Doctors have warned of patients waiting in pain and fear as clinical decisions were distorted to cut costs and deal with the financial crisis in healthcare. So ministers are now preparing to launch a 10-year plan designed to make care better, faster and more efficient. I was under the impression that Sir Keir Starmer said that one of the things he was most proud of was sorting out the NHS waiting times and getting 3 million more appointments going.
Absolutely right. And if you look at the budgets and the spending review, they're pouring more money into the NHS without actual reform and changes to the system to make it more productive and more efficient. You know, just at the weekend, we had Wes Streeting parading around the studios with his new policy, which is essentially to make supermarkets hide the crisps.
Yeah.
You know, it's just not serious. And so we'll see what he says. I think it's tomorrow he's coming out with this new plan. But so far what we've seen is just a lot of rhetoric, a lot of press releases and an increase in the nanny states. That's not serious, and they need to get on and actually reform the NHS, which is what they told us before the election they would do.
Yeah, well, that would be nice, but they don't seem to be doing much of what they told us they would do, and that seems to be part of the problem. Gareth Davis, thank you very much indeed. Shadow Financial Secretary to the Treasury.